Good evening. This is Mike from SADT, and I'm coming at you today with some information on the prepper mindset. When I talk about prepper mindset, I'm talking about uh, not how well you're going to fight necessarily against someone trying to take your preps or attack you in a world without rule of law situation, but the total mindset, how you improvise, how you cope, how you respond to different situations as they occur. One of the main reasons why I thought this was going to be an important video to put out is because I've viewed other YouTubers' videos on the same subject, and they tell people to do some things. Well, I mean, while not necessarily bad things, but they're not thinking completely through the situation, in my opinion. And they're telling people to do things that might partially address some issues, but they don't really go into the situation with the world without rule of law situation. Let me give you an example. One example is I've seen several videos on how to fish when there's a world without rule of law, total breakdown situation, and you're fishing for survival. And I've seen these people pull out tackle boxes and all kinds of lures and hooks and different types of line and bait and how to hook fish on hooks and stuff like that when you're going to go fly fishing or sitting out on the bank casting your rod over and over out in the water. Well, in my opinion, this is not a wise way to go about surviving in a catastrophe situation. And I'll tell you why. There's many ways to fish. One way to fish is something that is known by many servicemen, especially the ones from Vietnam and earlier. Uh, I missed that period, but I still know a lot about tactics that they use to not necessarily survive, but just to make things a little more um, uh, copable, if if you will, uh, under the situation they found themselves in. I mean, after eating sea rats and whatever you can get for several months, you might decide that you want some trout or some bass or whatever you can catch, some catfish. Well, uh, one method they used was to throw a grenade into the water. And by throwing that grenade in the water, the shock from the blast of the grenade going off would actually shock or either kill the fish that were close enough. And the fish would float up to the top and they would go around and skim the fish off the surface of the water. Um, they didn't have time to stand on a bank and cast rods out into the water and hope that a fish would happen by it and decide, I wonder, is that a real piece of food or is that a lure? And should I bite it or should I try to get something else? You know, while the fish is figuring that out and you're trying to figure out whether or not you're going to survive, a lot of time is going by. And for every minute that goes by when you're in a survival situation, so much of your energy also goes away. Everything you do in life requires certain components to make them happen. Your electrolyte count is very important. And whereas most people think about electrolytes relative to sweating and all that, but actually all of your muscular reactions and nervous reactions and physiological reactions occur simply because you have a chemical balance that has to be maintained, and the maintenance of that balance is how you are able to move, ambulate, think, breathe, your heartbeat, and everything else. Every muscle contraction that your body makes has to have energy and electrolytes to function properly. Without those, you die. So the more time you spend and the more calories you burn trying to get food, you are actually subtracting away from the benefit of the food that you're getting. Therefore, if you're going to go fishing, you need to find the most efficient way to catch the most fish the quickest and without using as much energy. Think about that. How many videos have you seen on here telling you to go get this kind of rod or that kind of rod, this type of lure, this is how you fish, do this and do that? Well, the truth of the matter is if you go buy a fishing rod in a disaster situation where there could be hostile marauders on the other side of the water hiding in the bushes with a high-powered rifle to blow your head off, and you think you can sit there all day and fish, or go out in a boat in the middle of the lake and try to fish for a couple of hours to feed your family, then you don't know much about prepper mindset. The real prepper mindset is the mindset of a survivor. And if you are a survivor, then you should know. And if you don't, I'm going to reboot the way you think. That's my job, to try to make you think differently. Because when you think differently, you'll be to react differently under all type of stressors. And that's what tactics is all about. That's what being strategic is all about. If you're not strategic, you will not survive. If you don't have tactics, you will not survive. If you're using the wrong tactics for the situation, you will not survive. So let me tell you how you go about fishing when you don't have a grenade, you don't have a stick of dynamite, and you don't have all day to sit on the bank and hope that a fish bites your hook. You go and you get yourself a net. A net. Have you ever thought about that? If you don't have a net, get you a thin drape off a window. One of those sheer see-through drapes. If you don't have that, get you a screen from a window. If you don't have that, get a piece of chicken wire from the shed. And with that, you take scraps of meat, maybe liver from chicken or whatever, gizzards, whatever, they hold on a lot better. And you take your hooks and you loop the line through that, and you hook your bait onto the hooks, and you put this all around the center of your net. And with that, the fish will come to the net to eat, whether they bite the hook or not. After having it out there for several minutes, you pull it up really quickly. You do this from up here or from a deep position of water when you have a vertical look down, and you pull it up really fast. You stand a better chance of catching more fish with this apparatus than you do with several castings of a hook and a line and a reel and a rod. Think about it. You don't have time to try to fish the normal way. This is not a sporting event. Your family can't wait for the hope that you might catch a large fish big enough to feed them. But you can catch many small fish with a net. You can also catch crayfish, crawdads, and anything else that happens upon that net. Turtles. All of those are survival food. But if you're sitting there waiting for a fish to bite a hook, then you don't have the survivor mindset. You should have thought of this on your own. And now I'm telling you, just like I've told you guys a lot of other things that take you 360 degrees away from the ideas you may have had before. Like, for instance, having frozen water sitting off somewhere in a 55-gallon drum that you can't even get to because it's frozen solid, and you don't have an adequate heating source to actually thaw it up enough to actually make it sensible for you to even try. That's what my job is, to make you rethink and think about true survival and not this fictional stuff or people who've never really had any uh, jungle survival training, desert survival training, or hazardous environment survival training whatsoever. I've had plenty of it in the Marine Corps. And that's why I can tell you these things with not the probability of success, but the knowledge that they have succeeded for many Marines and many survivor uh, uh, military people in the past, and they will continue to do so. All you have to do is use your common sense once prompted, and you will know that the common misconception that's posted online about fishing should be stricken from your vocabulary and your vernacular as far as how you're going to survive in a world without rule of law. Just as you wouldn't hunt by the rules for game, you're not going to fish by the rules with a fishing rod. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous unless that's the only option you have. But everybody has something that they can use as a net. All you have to do is be resourceful. Think outside the box. That's what you're going to have to do to survive. And that's the purpose of what I'm telling you today. It's not so much about the fishing net, but to make you start rebooting your mental processes so that when a disaster does befall you or society as a whole, you think differently than all those other people out there that's going to be using too much energy to be doing too little. They're going to be getting too little calories back for the amount of work that they had to put into getting it. Hunting, fishing, and scavenging for food is not a zero-sum game. It's not. You're going to have to give something up for everything you get. And if you're talking about multiple people, it's even more a drain on everyone, because they're all waiting for you to come back with something, and if you don't, you just wasted a whole afternoon. So you maximize your ability to be successful by using good strategy, good thought processes, and good tactics. So if you don't have any screen, you don't have a net, you don't have any fishing hooks, you don't have any chicken wire that'll help you, all the minnows and little fish will get through the chicken wire and you only catch the bigger things. But when you're surviving, hey, little fish eat just like big ones do. If you can catch a whole bunch of those, you can make some soup or whatever. You can do whatever you have to do to survive. But if you catch nothing because you were using 1, 2, 3, 4 hooks, and you're waiting for the fish that's out in the whole lake, lagoon, river, or whatever to happen past that hook, then you're playing fool's folly. You're playing fool's folly. There's not going to be a game warden coming around saying, you're not supposed to use that net. I'm going to have to give you a ticket. That's not going to be happening. This is world without rule of law. So change the way you think and be better at survival. Before I end this video, I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me personally just this past year. It began in early March. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because having a survivor's mindset requires good coping skills as well as the ability to think under pressure for combat, having good strategy and tactics when it comes to hunting, fishing, and gathering food. It also takes coping skill in terms of loss. So I want to tell you a brief story about my loss in my family. Well, in March, early March, I got a call from my dad. I was actually in another state, driving on from that state all the way to New Jersey. I had to change direction immediately because he told me he was sick. My dad had a heart condition, so I did a quick U-turn and came back home, speeding as quickly as I could, safely of course, to try to get back in time to help him, even though I told him to immediately call 911 and go ahead and get on to the hospital. But my dad and me were very close, so he depended on me, and he wanted me to take him, and he wouldn't go. So I was on the phone with him several times with him and my brother, discussing things to do to help him be prepared, opening the door, standing in the door, my brother standing in the door, having a path ready in case they need to come in with equipment to either uh, ventilate and give him CPR or actually take him out quickly to the waiting ambulance and onto a hospital. Well, I made it back probably within an hour and 10 minutes. My dad was still there, and he was doing okay, considering the many years he had had a heart condition. My mom, which he had been taking care of for several years with my brother's assistance, was actually in a paralyzed state, suffering with Alzheimer's. And she was in the latter stages of that. And so me, my brother, and my dad cared for my mom, uh, as she did for me when I was young, and she would do if she was alive today if something happened to me or any of us in the family. So I owed that to my mom, and I owed driving all the way back to my dad. So when I got back, immediately got his stuff, and he wanted to take uh, his paperwork that he needed for his bills and everything. I said, Dad, you're not going to need that. You're going to the hospital, relax. You'll have it when you come home. Because many times in the past, my dad had a quintuple bypass before they had a quadruple bypass. Then he had a double bypass earlier on in his life. And he had survived every one of them and was able to go to the store, do everything. He didn't have any restrictions physically on him. So I got him to the VA hospital, and they checked him in. Several hours went by, and they said he needed to go to um, critical care unit. So they took him up there. To make a long story short, even though it's a very important story, I think it's an important story for everyone to hear, but this isn't the forum to talk about this, to discuss this. Maybe in the comments you can put a comment, a question, and ask me more about the situation. Because it's going to happen in everyone's life. And it's the reason why I'm talking about this. And we'll get into that at the end of this video. So my dad went in there. They found out that he had actually had a blockage that was causing back pressure, raising his blood pressure, and giving him the intense pain, a blockage in his intestines. You know, you have your descending colon that actually breaks off from your transverse colon, or right there at the splenic flexure. He had a blockage, and because of that blockage, he was having chest pains. So that and his former heart condition were actually mixing together and giving him symptoms. So what they did is they started breaking that blockage up and breaking it up, and they had him on a liquid diet. In fact, an intravenous diet of basically just his electrolytes and a little bit of carbohydrates and protein, I assume, in the mix that they were giving him. However, 4 days later, they had said any day now they had broke the blockage up. He would be coming home probably in a couple days. Well, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, one Thursday, middle of March, the Ides of March, the Ides of March, I received a call from my sister who was sitting with him and saying that Dad is in a bad way. You need to get to the hospital. They're taking him into cardiac surgery. He's having a heart attack. And she sent me pictures of the heart monitors and stuff. He was involved in instimming, or his heart rate was really erratic. That's the simple way to put it. And because of that, they needed to do a immediate balloon angioplasty and a bypass. That was the only way they were going to save his life, according to the doctor that I spoke to. So I immediately got up, got dressed, and started on my way to the hospital so I could see him before he went to surgery. Well, I didn't make it in time. I didn't make it in time to get to surgery. My sister and him prayed together, saying the Lord's Prayer, and he went on to surgery. Well, when I arrived at the cardiac crash center, I met with my sister, and she said he's already in surgery. And my dad was in surgery, so I didn't get a chance to see him. The last time I saw him was a day before he started his decline. Now, my dad was 84 years old. So some people might think, well, he lived a long, good life. But you're never prepared for this type of thing, especially when you have somebody so resilient and so strong. Me and him for a lot of life, he was in the Army during Korea. And I patterned a lot of things in my life after things that he did. He boxed in the Army. I boxed in the Marine Corps. I boxed Golden Gloves before I went in. And we were very close. So I wanted to see him before he went in, but I wasn't able to. About 30 minutes after I got there, a doctor came out of the room and approached us and said, "Are you the son?" He was asking about you before you went in surgery. Let me tell you the good news. Your dad just came through surgery. He's doing okay. Seems like there's a little leakage because his blood pressure is dropping a little bit. But I need the authority to go with another procedure from you, since you're his power of attorney, his durable power of attorney and everything. And I said, fine, do whatever you have to do. She said that his heart was going to be weaker. He wouldn't be able to do as much, but he had made it through the surgery okay. As we were talking, as we were discussing this, the intercoms went off. Code blue, code blue, code blue. And they said it was in the cardiac care unit, cardiac surgery. And so I immediately started thinking, oh man, someone is having an emergency situation with a family member. That was shock setting in. My sister said, oh, don't let that happen to our dad, please, don't. And I said, that's probably not him, because the doctor's standing right here telling us that everything is okay. So it can't be him. And then she tells me, but Michael, he's the only one in there. He's the only one having surgery right now, according to the doctors. And then the doctor said, I gotta go. He ran off. I saw a crashed car go down the hallway, and it's like the room started moving around past me, and it was settling in that this is it. This is it. All of a sudden, I saw the chaplain run by. Yes, the chaplain ran by. All kinds of people running down to the surgery center. Then the doctor that I was talking to, along with two surgeons, both came out. And the doctors told me, sorry, your dad didn't make it. Immediately, a sense of calm came over me because that's my personality. My sister broke down into tears. As the titular head of the family, so to speak, once my dad got older, I never showed strong emotions about things like this. I always had to keep a strong demeanor to, be the leader of the family, like my dad would want it to be. But my dad was gone. And so the doctors explain all this mumble jumble nonsense to me. And I'm thinking the only thing that I know is that you guys removed the electrolytes from his body at such a rate while you were flushing his digestive system with water to break up that saline solution, rather, from his abdomen for 3 days. And you destabilized his system by cutting off his electrolyte count. But he was 84 years old, so he had a slim chance of survival anyway. And the reason why I told you this story is because I immediately went into psychological crisis mode and stress because it was uncontrollable, the event, and it was a great loss, a great loss. But it didn't stop there. A month and a half later, my mom that I told you guys earlier about, she passed away too. So it was 2 major losses. I had to arrange both of my parents' funerals. I closed my dad's eyes and my mom's. I was there when she passed away as well, while they applied CPR to her. I witnessed my mom's death. I arranged for both funerals, everything. Never once having the ability to mourn. I know this is a kind of long video, but bear with me, it's very important to survival. Even though it might not seem like it right now, it might not seem like it's a very important story to tell relative to survival, but I will tell you before the end of this video why it's important to you. It's important to you because in a world without rule of law situation where there's all kinds of hazards, life-ending hazards, dangerous situations, people around you will pass away. And the ability of you to cope with those, short-term and long-term, will have an outcome, a major outcome, on your ability to be able to survive and the people with you, their ability to survive as well. So you need to think about these things and get your mind right. Get your mind right. Get your religion right. Get your thought and priorities right now. Because I'll tell you, it comes without warning. And there's no one, if you are the leader, there's no one to console you. Who motivates the motivator? Who consoles the leader? You stand up and you eulogize your parents. If you don't have a relationship with your Father in heaven, who's going to counsel you as the leader? Who's going to get you through that rough time? There might not be a reverend, a chaplain, a priest, an elder statesman. There might not be anyone to console you. You're too busy taking care of and consoling your group. That stress can be bewildering, and it can be pervasive and destructive physically and morally to any person. So I wanted you to know those two factors so that you could reboot. You could reboot your mind. So when these things happen, if they happen, you're ready. You're prepared psychologically and spiritually and physically for the effects, for how you're going to cope, how you're going to deal with the loss of a loved one, the loss of someone so close that you would tear off your arm. You would sacrifice your life, your sacred arm for that person. But once it happens, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't jump in the coffin or the grave and change places with them. The stronger you are physically, the more tough you are as a leader, the more it's going to hurt you because you can't break down like other people. People are looking to you for leadership, especially at that critical moment. So when do you depress? When do you break down? Where are your solitary, solemn moments? Maybe you won't have any. Some of you out there have went through similar things, maybe not as close. Within a month and a half, I lost both of my parents. One more expected than the other. My dad, no one expected that. It was the biggest shock that I ever faced in my life relative to my family. But I got through it. That's the good news. I was able to get through it because of my faith, because of my inner strength, my determination, and my coping skills. If you don't know what those are, then you better start looking into them now, and you better know your own thresholds and the thresholds of the people around you so that you guys can cope, deal with, and come out on top as a group, as a family, and maybe as a culture. I hope me sharing this story of personal loss and a little bit about rebooting and changing the way you think about preparedness mindset helps somebody. If it helped you, then I hope you'll thumbs up the video, and I hope you'll pass it along to others, because the greatest thing that's going to happen to you, other than you losing your own life, and possibly, in your own opinion, it'll even be worse, is a loss of a loved one, a mother, a father, a wife, a child. So if you find yourself ever in this situation, just remember this story. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's a great light that shines within each and every one of us that will help you get through these type of situations. But you have to be open to it. You have to be ready. You have to be willing, and you have to humble yourself. Because trust me, events will humble you. It will bring you down, no matter how strong and sturdy your body is, how strong and practice your mindset is. Oh, there's something that'll get to you. The wear and tear of surviving, the loss of family and friends, death and destruction all around you. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. With that, I'm going to end this video. I know I touched and I know I educated somebody today about a couple of things that's very important with the survivor mindset. Think about those things. Put them in your little ditty bag of survival tips and use them when you need to. This is Mike from SADT signing off, and be strong and stay safe.